Hello, everyone. In my work as a healthcare professional, I've seen over and over again how our past can really truly shape our present. And one of the toughest things to grapple with is traumatic memory. It can feel like this just unbearable weight. But understanding how it actually works, that's the very first step toward having compassion, not just for others, but for ourselves too. So welcome to MediByte. In this explainer, we're going to try and entangle the incredibly complex nature of traumatic memory. We're going to dive into the science behind what it means for memory to get frozen in time, and hopefully give you a really clear way to understand it. All right, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start by looking at the core paradox of traumatic memory. Then we'll get into the brain's response to a threat. From there, we'll see how the body itself actually holds on to memory. We'll demystify flashbacks, and we'll wrap up with the hopeful path towards healing and integrating the past. So let's start with something that might sound like a complete contradiction. People who've gone through trauma often remember both way too much in these vivid, intrusive pieces, and at the same time, way too little, with huge gaps in the story of what actually happened. And this difference is just so important to grasp. See, our regular, everyday memories are basically stories. We tell them to people, they change a bit over time, and we weave them into the bigger narrative of our lives. But traumatic memories, there's something else entirely. They are not stories. They're raw, broken up sensory imprints, like a snapshot image, a sound, a physical feeling that just stay isolated, frozen solid, and they don't change. They don't have a beginning, a middle, or an end. So the big question is, why? Why does this fragmentation even happen? Well, the answer is all about the brain's basic wiring. To get it, we really need to look at what's going on neurologically when we're faced with an overwhelming threat. This is really the key question, isn't it? And the answer has nothing to do with being weak or failing to get over it. It's about real physiological changes in how the brain processes and stores information when it's under extreme stress. And this image shows the heart of the problem perfectly. Think of the amygdala as your brain's smoke detector. During a traumatic event, it's not just beeping, it is screaming fire at the top of its lungs. But at that exact same moment, the prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain that's like the calm dispatcher who understands context and time, it just shuts down. The alarm is absolutely deafening, and the one part of the brain that could say, wait, this is a memory, the danger is over, has gone completely offline. So here's the bottom line. When threatened, the brain flips a switch into pure survival mode. The amygdala takes the wheel. The rational brain, the part that makes stories and uses language, gets suppressed. And maybe most importantly, the brain's internal timekeeper just stops. This is why the trauma isn't experienced as something that happened. It's experienced as happening right now, with all of the original fear and physical feelings. Now, we've seen what happens in the brain, but this is not just a mental event, not at all. The imprint of trauma goes so much deeper, lodging itself right into our bodies and changing our physical experience of the world. This quote from Katie Cannon just nails it. A traumatic memory isn't just an idea or an image we have in our heads, it's a physical state. The body itself becomes this living, breathing record of what happened. So what happens is, after a traumatic event, the body often keeps defending against a threat that actually belongs in the past. And this leads to this constant state of internal chaos. You might get unexplained physical symptoms, chronic muscle tension, a nervous system that is just always on high alert. The body is still fighting a war that is, for all intents and purposes, long over. And this brings us to one of the most defining and honestly one of the most misunderstood features of post-traumatic stress, flashbacks. Let's really break down what's going on here. The mechanism behind all this is called disassociation. You can think of it like the mind's emergency escape hatch. When an experience is just too much to handle, the mind splits it off to protect itself. But here's the thing. Those pieces, the emotions, the sounds, the images, they don't just vanish. They become these fragments that take on a life of their own, ready to pop up and intrude on the present at any moment. So let's be really clear. A flashback is not like remembering something or watching a movie of the past. It's being thrown, involuntarily, right back into the sensory pieces of the event. A certain smell, a sound, an internal feeling can be the trigger, and suddenly the body's alarm system is firing like the trauma is happening all over again, right now, with no context and no control. Okay, after looking at how trauma can fracture memory in the body, it's so important that we turn toward the path forward. Healing is absolutely possible, and it doesn't start with trying to forget. It starts with the goal of integration. The goal of recovery isn't to erase the memory, because you can't. The real goal is to integrate it. It's about taking those frozen, broken pieces and slowly, carefully, weaving them into the bigger tapestry of your life story, so they don't dominate your present anymore. It's about changing the memory from this terrifying live event into just a story about something that happened in the past.
So this path usually involves a few key stages. First, just acknowledging the reality of what happened. Then, learning to actually notice and bear the internal physical sensations and feelings without being completely swept away by them. And finally, the ultimate goal, to re-establish ownership, to feel like you're back in the driver's seat of your own body and your own mind. This is how the brain and the body can finally learn that the danger is past and that it is safe to live in the present.
And this really leaves us with the core challenge and the ultimate hope of recovery. It's a profound journey. It's not just about surviving. It's about learning how to truly thrive. It's about rewiring a system that was built for constant threat into one that can actually experience safety, joy, and connection right here and right now.
Thank you so much for joining us for this MediByte explainer. I think if there's one thing to take away, it's that traumatic memory isn't just a bad story. It's a physical state. And just understanding that is the first crucial step toward healing. If you found this helpful, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into health and the human mind.